Sharon, pleasure. Thanks for taking the time out. If you could give a quick introduction on yourself and give an overview what we got going on at Sun Summit Minerals.
Sure. So I'm Sharon Alexander. I'm president of Sun Summit Minerals. I started with the company in 2019 when they were making the move from Mexico. They were known as San Marco Resources. And I joined as a geologist. I was VP Technical Services when we optioned the Buck property, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. And yeah, just since then I've been working on the project, and I was appointed president November of last year. And so yeah, I'm really excited to have this role and share our story with shareholders. I think it's a really interesting story. So I'm a geologist. That's my background. I've worked in Canada as well as Australia, both mining and grassroots exploration, the whole range. I'm also familiar with databases and GIS. And so I have I think a pretty wide range of skills. But yeah, I think the Buck project is pretty interesting. It had been explored for 100 years before we optioned the property. So there's a lot there. It's a bit confusing at times, and to learn about the styles of mineralization, it's a bit of a puzzle, but our geologists are up for the task. So
Cool. And do you want to just kind of continue, and we can kind of talk about what's going on lately and how's
sure.
everything been?
Well, why don't I just jump to the presentation then?
Sure.
Okay. So some forward-looking statements, of course, do your own due diligence. So Sun Summit Minerals, our flagship property is the Buck project. So that's a bulk tonnage gold, silver, and zinc property in central British Columbia. So you can see the arrow there. We're in the middle of a bunch of historic mines. So for example, Equity Silver, Huckleberry, Blackwater. It's just near the town of Smithers. So it's pretty moderate terrain. It's not like the Golden Triangle, which has accessibility issues and weather, for example. We can explore year round. So that really sets us apart, is that we can drive right to site. We have excellent existing infrastructure, not only nearby, but also within our tenure package itself. And so that keeps the exploration costs pretty low, which definitely is a bonus in this time where supplies are getting more expensive and it's harder to find people. And also it's unconstrained. So as of yet, we have about a 1 kilometer strike length of mineralization at Buck Main, and it's unconstrained. It's open in all directions. We're well funded. We did a financing in March, so we were very lucky to get some funding before the market turned. And so we're well financed for exploration, and we have a really good management team as well. So to just zoom in on the property itself, for those who are unfamiliar, the Buck project, it's 33,000 hectares or 330 square kilometers. And it's just south of the town of Houston. So it's a small town off the Yellowhead Highway. So that's a fully paved highway that goes through central British Columbia. There's rail, there's power, so a lot of existing infrastructure. And you can see also within the tenure, there's all weather access roads, there's Forest Service roads. And so this area has been developed to various degrees in the past, either through previous exploration or through logging. And then as well, it's a very active mining region. There's some previously producing mines. So I mentioned Equity Silver mine is just to the east. That's complete now. And then Huckleberry mine is a copper mine to the southwest that's currently on care and maintenance, but they're going to be bringing that back into production. And then as well, there's a lot of other explorers in the area. The Teck property to the west of us, that's a copper project. We have Silver Queen to the south of us, that's Equity Metals, and a bunch of other junior and mid-tier explorers in the area. So it's pretty active. The permitting is quite straightforward. First Nations, it's very, friendly, and we've been engaging with the different groups there. So it's a really great mining region. And then as well, I mentioned that the access is just spectacular. So we can drive right to the drill. There's no need for helicopters, at least at Buck Main. That's kept the exploration costs low. And yeah, it just makes it very easy to explore. We don't have those seasonality issues. For example, in the Golden Triangle, there's a very short window for exploration, but we can drill year round, and we have been. So that's left our summers, for example, for sampling, and then in the off season we can drill. And so that's led to some pretty good exploration programs and campaigns. We've been able to keep that running quite regularly. So Buck itself, it's a large hydrothermal package. So there's a lot of breccias and tuffs and volcanic rocks. And what we found is the main style of mineralization is this kind of disseminated mineralization. So as these fluids came through, they permeated the rock types, and we get this disseminated mineralization, which really would be more of a bulk tonnage style of mineralization. So we're using Artemis Gold's Blackwater project as an analog. So they just, or a few years ago, had their resources 8 million ounces at 0.75 gram per ton gold. So these are the kind of grades that we're seeing at Buck and then some. So at these long intercepts, hundreds of meters of 0.5 gram to 1 gram per ton gold, it's very economic when you take into account the price of gold as well as the existing infrastructure. It's very easy to get to. And so at these kind of grades, at these kind of intercepts, it really could be economic. So that's what we're focusing on at Buck Main. But as well, we have high grade vein hosted gold, which we found as well. So we had a few very high grade hits, 0.5 meter of 250 gram per ton gold. So that was quite exciting in 2021. And then as well, we have what's called this mosaic breccia. So you can see on the photo on the upper right, it's this very sulfide rich breccia. All of that black is sphalerite. And so it's quite a beautiful rock. So we have a wide variety of different lithological types here. And you can see in the yellow in the map, that is that more disseminated style of mineralization. And when we first started drilling, we thought that the disseminated style of mineralization was more on the east, and then we'd have more of that vein hosted high grade on the west. But what we're finding as we're drilling and stepping out is that this disseminated mineralization, we're finding that now on the west as well. And so every time we step out, we're intersecting more of this bulk tonnage style mineralization, which is really the story at Buck, and which we're hoping to build out. And every time we step out, right now we have about 1 kilometer strike length. Every time we step out, we're finding more mineralization. So that's a really good indicator that we're on the right track. So just to go over some of the grades, I mentioned half a gram to 1 gram per ton gold. When we bring in a gold equivalent calculation, so we're using gold and silver, and as well zinc is a large part of this system. And so we've actually brought that into our gold equivalent calculation. Part of the reason is that we've done some preliminary metallurgical test work. And so on gold, silver, and zinc, we find the recoveries are quite high. And so that's why we felt comfortable bringing zinc into the gold equivalent calculation. We're going to be doing additional metallurgical work to really fine tune some of those recoveries and get a better idea about how these rocks could behave in a mining scenario. But as of now, we have a gold equivalent calculation that is gold, silver, and zinc. And so what we're looking at is several hundred meters. If you look on the right, all of those long intercepts are 200, 300, 400 meters of over 1 gram per ton gold equivalent. So those are some pretty significant grades, some pretty significant potential ounces that we're seeing here. And if you look, we've really only drilled, in terms of what Sun Summit has done, we've drilled 75 holes for just over 27,000 meters. So we still have a lot of drilling that we can do. There's a lot of potential on the east and the west, as I mentioned, as well as north and south. There's a lot of infill drilling we can do as well. In terms of the high grade, I mentioned 0.5 gram at 250 gram per ton gold. We also have 1.5 meters of 50 gram per ton gold. And so this high grade and more bulk tonnage style, we sometimes see those together. So within a large, a long intercept of more of this bulk tonnage mineralization, we do see shorter intercepts of higher grade. And so it's not so simple, as I mentioned. It's a bit tricky to figure out the technical constraints on mineralization and what controls it. But our geologists are working hard to figure it all out, and we're working with different groups and modeling this to figure out, where should we drill next. And here's a cross section. I'll go through this quickly. It's very similar to the previous slide. So you can basically see on the right is where we have those long intercepts of the bulk tonnage, disseminated mineralization. And then we get the high grade hits in the middle. And then what is new from our last drill program, our last two drill programs, is on the left. You can see we have a new band of that disseminated mineralization. So some pretty exciting discoveries that we made last year to kind of build up this arsenal of this disseminated mineralization. So we've done some modeling. So you can see this is the 75 holes that we've drilled for just over 27,000 meters. It's very continuous. And so it's a very a long strike. It's very continuous, both laterally and at depth. And so there's a lot of potential here. There's the grade thickness is very favorable as well. And so we're getting to the point now where we might be able to think about doing maybe back of the envelope calculation of what the potential ounces could be. You know, that's something that our technical team is thinking of. But in the meantime, we are planning some follow-up drilling and maybe most likely some step out drilling, because we really want to find out what the potential of this system is here. And in terms of the potential, you can see the progression over time. So when we optioned the property in July 2019, there was historic drilling. Unfortunately, we had no core. None of the core was available, or it had been left out in the bush, and it was really, you couldn't see hole IDs, you couldn't see depths and things like that, and it was all weathered. And so we really had to drill to figure out what the rocks were like. And so in the 2.5 years since optioning the property, we've have 5 drill campaigns, and you can see the mineralized envelope growing. Every time we've drilled, we've intersected more mineralization. And what's important to point out about this is that this is just the mineralization that is continuous. So all the little blobs on the side, we've removed those for simplicity, but you can see the key here is the continuity of mineralization. If between drill holes, we can connect the mineralization, then that could be something that would be mineable. And so that's what we're looking to focus on modeling here, is that continuity of mineralization. So something that could actually be mined in a real world scenario. So in addition to Buck Main, there's a lot of potential on the property. So if we zoom out just a little bit, you can see that 1 kilometer strike length at Buck Main in the drilling that we've done. We have an IP inverse polarization geophysics in the background there. That's 150 meter level. So you can see there's very chargeable anomalies. And so that would indicate potentially sulfides. So a lot of sphalerite, for example, is associated with gold. In addition, we've taken a lot of surface samples. So you can see some of the rock samples here in the kind of purple triangles or diamonds. We have some pretty great grades, and it's not just gold, silver, zinc. We have copper. You know, if you look to the top there, we have 633 gram per ton silver in a rock sample. And then to the west, you know, 2% zinc. So some really great rock samples that we're getting. And so that indicates the type of mineralization that could be at depth. And so those are definite drill targets that we're looking at as well. And just to quickly point out the difference or comparing Buck Main with Blackwater, the map on the left is Blackwater, and you can see that 1 kilometer strike length. All of those black dots are their drilling at the time of this map. And so there's a lot of grade control drilling. But you can see size-wise, it's quite comparable to Buck Main as well. And Buck is unconstrained. And so that's really shows the potential here as well, the size and scale potential. So to remind everyone, we have that 33,000 hectare tenure package that is quite large. And also, as mentioned, there's quite a lot of very interesting you know, prospects and deposits around us. To the left, to the west, we have a copper project. To the south, we have silver. You know, there's porphyry coppers. There's all different types of mineralization styles around our property. And so the chance of having something like that within our property package is quite high, I'd think. You know, the exploration upside within our tenure is quite high. And so you can see on the large map there, the pink dots, those are soil geochemistry, and they're colored by zinc. And we're using zinc as a pathfinder for gold, because similar to Blackwater, there's a very strong association with zinc to gold, more so than gold and silver. And so we're using zinc as a pathfinder. And you can see, looking at the map here, there's quite a lot of zinc anomalies. In fact, there's quite a lot of multi-element anomalies that we're finding from our surface sampling. And so that is a great indication of the potential here. In terms of where we're going to drill and targeting, drill in future, we've just, we're working on a VTEM geophysical survey that's been flown. We're waiting for final data. And so what that's going to do over the entire property is provide us with kind of a first pass, high level overview of what's happening on the property. And then if any of those geophysical anomalies coincide with the geochemical anomalies, that'll help us narrow down and develop some strong targets. I also want to mention that we had a third-party geophysicist come through and look at all the geophysics on the property. So whether it's been magnetics, IP, airborne information. And so we're working on and figuring out which should be our priority this year, for example, and which ones we will work on in the future. So a lot of work to be done here, but that's a good thing. So again, quickly go over the timeline. So we optioned the property 2019. The focus for 2022, we had our fifth drill program in February, just a small one following up on the holes we didn't drill last fall. We had that VTEM geophysical survey. We're doing modeling and targeting, additional metallurgical test work. And then in addition, we have a permit application for the entire property. So previously we were just drilling at Buck Main, but we have a permit application in with the ministry, and that is going through very quickly. And so we're expecting to get that approved shortly. And that'll allow us to drill everywhere on the property, within reason. So that is going to be a game changer as well. We're actually going to be able to follow up on some of these geophysical and geochemical anomalies with the drill rig. So that's going to really give us a lot of information, and there's a lot of potential for additional discovery here. So as I mentioned, target generation and prospectivity assessment. So we're doing that reinterpretation of both geochemical geophysical data. So there's potential for what's coming up and upcoming catalysts. We're planning our drilling, what we want to do at Buck Main. If that permit comes through for the property wide, we're going to be looking at doing some additional drilling on the property, which we've never done. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to be doing probably a ground survey, so some additional sampling, soil sampling, rock sampling, mapping, structural mapping. A lot of Buck Main is structurally controlled, and so our geologists love to get out there, and we're pretty excited to get back out in the field. And then I mentioned the metallurgical test work that'll help de-risk the project, and just knowing the recoveries or potential recoveries if we entered a mining scenario. So lots of exploration news flow to come. We were a bit slow getting started this year. Our VTEM survey was delayed a few months, but we're very excited to get back out in the field. And yeah, it's a great project. It's a great region, very easy access. It's almost town-based, and so it's very easy to get drillers and geologists to go up there and work. We're well funded, which some companies can't say. So we're very lucky to be funded into 2023, and we have a great team, and so that really makes it fun to work. And yeah, no, I think it's a really great project. So in terms of share structure, like a lot of similar companies and juniors, we've all seen better days. The market isn't exactly that friendly right now. So we have just over 76 million outstanding shares. Currently we're at about 15 million market cap. We have been higher, of course. We did our financing in March, and so we raised $6 million. We have about 5 million of that left for the rest of this year, which we can definitely manage with our low exploration costs. In terms of liquidity events, we have 6 million warrants expiring at the end of July. And then as well, we have 1 million warrants expiring at the end of November. In terms of ownership, we have about 11% insider ownership. 25% institutions and funds, and mostly that came from our last round of financings. And then the rest are retail and high net worth. And so what we really want to focus on is, keeping long-term shareholders. We've done some flow through financing in the past, where, maybe the stock has been flipped a little bit more, but, we're really looking for those long-term shareholders, people who believe in the project, who, stick with us. And those are the kind of people that we love to work with. And we do have quite a few very loyal shareholders, and we talk to regularly and, keep them up to date. And then I mentioned I'm Sharon Alexander, president. Bob Willis was our CEO up until a few months ago. He's now senior advisor, so still very active in the project. And then our chairman is Tukey Angus, who's been a very significant industry player. He's been responsible for, $1 billion worth of, acquisitions and mergers, acquisitions, and JVs and things like that. So he's a pretty significant industry player, very well known, and we're very lucky to have him on our board as well. So that's about it. I'm not sure how I did for time, but I think we're going to have some questions.
Yeah, that was perfect, Sharon. I have one question. Maybe you can kind of talk about the Artemis steel and Blackwater and the value that they're unraveling there, and what we could potentially see later down the road if once Buck is de-risked and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, sorry, I think you cut out a bit there. So you're asking about Artemis Gold, like the Blackwater project?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to have Christopher Leslie as our technical advisor, and he was part of the discovery team of the Blackwater project when it was with Richfield Ventures. They then got bought by New Gold, and now they're with Artemis. And so he was there since the beginning, and so he's been able to really guide us, at least in terms of exploration, targeting, and strategy. We're using a lot of very similar strategies and things like that for ways to explore. I think with the Blackwater project, it's really getting its legs now. Unfortunately, a bulk tonnage story isn't always an easy sell, but we don't have these flashy numbers like some high grades projects. But Blackwater, I think it's doing very well. They did some great control drilling, and it's looking like they're on their way very quickly to producing. And so the key there is if you need the price of gold for these bulk tonnage grades, as well as you need the infrastructure. So a bulk tonnage story could be economic if you have those things, which, for example, Buck does. At Blackwater, they did have to build a lot of infrastructure. At Buck, it's already there. And so that is very key. Even if the price of gold was to drop a bit, we feel that this project could still be economic, barring nothing comes up with, the feasibility and environmental and things like that.
Yeah, I believe they paid several $100 million for the project, right? So, I mean, comparing our valuation to theirs, there's a lot of potential upside once everything is de-risked, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just to, remind everyone, Buck is still very early stages. And so, we are pre-feasibility, we're pre-resource. And so this is just grassroots exploration, or I guess a little bit further along. But, I think the next year is really going to be the turning point for us. We're starting to think, is this something we could put a resource on? And previous years, we hadn't thought that we were ready. And so in the next year, the next 12 months, you could see some significant changes. There could be, a resource at Buck. We could have another discovery on the property. And so this is a really important time, I think, for the company and the project.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe you can just touch on how much drilling is done to date, and how much drilling we're going to do for this season, and kind of give an idea of how many meters we're probably going to include on a resource that we'll have out in the next near future here.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned in total for the 5 drill programs, we have 75 holes, and those are at various depths. So just over 27,000 meters. A lot of the historic drilling was very shallow. And so they really focused on that disseminated mineralization in the Buck Creek area. But what we found, and that's how we found the high grade, is that we went quite a bit deeper. And so some of our holes if anything is economic, or the mineralization is near surface. And so that's what we've been focused on. But so we've done quite a bit of drilling. We've done some step out drilling. I think what we're going to be looking at in the next few months as we're planning our next drill phase at Buck Main is going to be stepping out. So I mentioned at the west and the east, we're finding new mineralization that we didn't, that hadn't been previously drilled. And so most likely we're going to be continuing to step out along strike. But there's also some very attractive targets to the north and to the south. And so really the sky's the limit. There are a few no-brainer holes that we'd like to drill right away, but we were really waiting on some of this reanalysis and reinterpretation to come back, just so we can help fine tune our targeting strategies and come up with some holes that we really would love to get assay results back and see how they would build out this mineralized footprint. So I don't have exact numbers for what our program will be. We're just finishing up the VTEM survey and we're just getting back some of this reinterpreted data. And so, I mean, at the end of the summer, we most likely will be drilling. I can't give an exact, meterage of what we'll be drilling. I think it'll be a pretty moderate program. But yeah, we're well funded. And so any kind of exploration we can do on the property, we have the money for.
Perfect. And I think, we're thinking about hosting potentially an investor tour up there as well this year. Is that something that you're still thinking about doing?
Yeah, for sure. So having, people come up to site. We're also engaging with the different First Nations groups. And so we're going to have some community visits as well. A lot of people are very curious about the project. We are near town. And so we do hire local as much as we can and use First Nation affiliated groups. And so, we're going to be having a lot of visitors on the project this year, I think. Awesome.
Well, I think that's good. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. They could put them in now, but if not, we'll upload this onto YouTube and, we'll start sharing it around. And yeah, thanks, Sharon, for your time.
Thanks, Sunil, and thanks everyone for joining and listening in to our little impromptu conversation.
Yeah. So one person said, let's find some gold, Sharon.
Yes, we're working on it.
And one guy said the stock is down almost 70% this year. Do you know what has happened?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it is very similar to a lot of other of our peer companies. The market is just, people are not investing like they were at the beginning of the year. I think there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty right now. It could be a variety of things. We could be getting some selling pressure. We're unsure where that's coming from, but I think putting out some news and getting drilling again will help with that. I think people are just looking for some updates. So we're a bit late getting started, but we're going to be having some news coming out and just talking about the project and making sure that we remain on the radar during this little bit of a downturn. But no, everything is fine. We're just plugging along. Our feet are quickly paddling under the water. You might not be seeing it, but we're going along.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you, Sharon, for your time. Thanks for joining everyone else. And look, thank you again. And this has been a great update. Thanks, Sharon.
Great. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.